Hey everybody, it's Aaron from Matthias. Welcome to our SuperRack overview video. This is basically just going to give you an overview of Waves SuperRack sound grid, just kind of walk you through how this program works, how we set it up here. So let's get right into it. So what we're looking at right now is just a custom layer here. We'll start at the very beginning, as you can see right here. I've got 64 different layers of, not 64 layers, 64 channels, and split up into different layers. I'm recording this from broadcast where we don't run that many racks at front of house. We run a little bit more. Basically, it's just all these racks are laid out, and you can have them be anything you want them to be. You can double click them and rename them and all that. Your ins and outs also come from here. As you can see, I can pull this up and go wherever. So if you're starting this from scratch, the setup menu is going to be your best friend. The setup menu shows you a couple things here. Shows you your I/O device. So where broadcast is sourced through the HearTech Waves SoundBridge Dante bridge, which you see right here. So it's on a 96K. We're connected. Then we've got a Waves SoundGrid server sitting in broadcast here with me. This is a MIDI thing we've configured to work with our Stream Deck. But as you can see here, we're running 32 channels to it and 32 channels back. It'll show you everything. It'll show you everything from your link, your port here. So you need some wired connections. You run Waves on a closed network. So we've got our link is up, speed, sample rate, processing, all this. So the way that I've configured our SuperRack so it's easy to use is that I'll create custom layers here. So custom layers, click custom. These can be renamed. You can click any of your strips to bring in. So what I've done here is I've just brought in all of my drums, my drum bus, all of my instruments, my instrument bus, all of my vocals, my vocal, and also my master bus, and I've got my effects back here. So essentially, this is your overview. You can kind of customize what these overviews look like. I just usually stay on overview 1. At front of house, I'll actually drag rack to a secondary display so that whenever I click a rack, it'll immediately bring up this page here. So if I want to get to any of the racks, I can add plugins from here. I can remove them, disable them. But the best way to kind of get into the processing is to click a rack. So we're going to click rack, and it's going to bring up this view. So we're looking at here, this is the input signal. This is the output signal. And obviously you see your routing here. You've got your plugins here. If you have options to sidechain it, you can do that here. You actually have an ability to A/B things. I don't use it, but apparently it's very cool. And then you just got your plugins from top to bottom. So for this kick channel, you've got the Q10, the PSE, DBX 160, and the API 550B. If I want to add anything, I just click add plugin list, and there's all the plugins I have at my disposal. This is pretty straightforward, pretty easy. If you want to, drag things around, rearrange things, that'll work. First thing you're going to see here is this safe thing at the top here. That corresponds to snapshots. We'll get to that here in a little bit. You'll see that here. Link, I don't use. I've honestly never touched it before. But this, very important. So there's these things called latency groups. I'm going to go over to show. I'm going to set up. Look in here. There we go. Sorry about that. We go to patch here. So in any of these Waves plugins, they have the ability to introduce latency. Now most of these things, like the drums in total, so I've selected kick, snare top, snare bottom, toms, all the drum channels under this drums latency group, and the most amount of latency any of those channels are getting is 1 sample. It will become a little bit bigger on like bass, vocals, keys. The buses are probably the most. So essentially what you're telling Waves to do here is you're putting these groups together and saying, okay, they all need to be in the same time. So if my kick has a latency of 1 sample, but the rest don't, it's going to delay all these tracks 1 sample so they're all together. similar. Bass is its own, so it doesn't really matter. But vocals, we've got 3 separate here. Keys, 2 separate here. So essentially what you're looking at here, you're saying, okay, let me make sure that all of my tracks are staying together as far as latency is concerned, because latency is a big deal, especially if you're recording in the studio and you're recording through plugins. So you want to make sure that everything is time aligned correctly. So you'll see as I click through all my drum channels here, drums stays. Same here if you go to instruments, guitars are all together, bass is all together, keys are all together, vocals are all together, etc. I love running snapshots in here. If you go to the show, you can see your sessions, you can save or load a template, you can save or load a session. Snapshots is a big deal though. So snapshots essentially lets you change certain parameters between songs, and it's all kind of up to you. So what we're looking at here is anything in blue enables snapshots to be recalled on these racks. So it's rack 17. So if you go here, go back to regular, rack 17 is my first vocal one. It's Brad for this week, so I have a name Brad. 17, 18, 19, 20. So those are my vocals, and then rack 26, which is my delay. And I have that enabled so that it will change delay time. As you can see up here, I can allow the different scopes that I can handle. So I'm only allowing it to recall BPM. I'm not allowing it to recall name, input or output, trim, in and mute, all that stuff, right? That would be really cool if you're running, a session with multiple bands. So you might be able to recall different sessions or different snapshots based on the band. But for our purposes, it's just these. And then this is saying that any plugin within those racks can be adjusted if I wanted to. I'll get into more of that later. So essentially, I've just got all of these are the songs I've got right now. I think an acoustic song is going here. But for now, these are my 4 songs. So if I wanted to save something, I click the one I want. And then if I click Store Snapshot, I'll say, do I want the current one, which is usually all those selected. I'm actually got stuff on there, so I'm not going to save that. And then I've put these nice little user keys here to go previous and next snapshot. As you can see here, let me go ahead and pull up this. So this is the rack 17, the first vocal rack. And what I've told it to do is, as I showed you here, plugin 1 through 8 can all be affected. Now you could, if you knew every time that auto-tune was going to be the second plugin, you could select that just the second plugin be affected. But I've noticed just changing things around last minute, and maybe different people running broadcasts, so maybe that's not always the second plugin in the chain. So what I prefer to do is I prefer to go to each plugin that I don't want to change and click Recall Safe. So when I click Recall Safe to turn it on, you'll see the safe thing come up again. It's the same thing you saw in those other channels, like bass here. Safe is up here. So I've just recalled safe that entire rack. Recall safe rack. You can actually go do that here as well. I just prefer to kind of go through, because I kind of forget which rack is like what number the racks are. Like getting into all this, I just prefer to go into my custom layers and make them safe one by one. So because I've decided not to let the plugin thing here choose what is safe and what's not, I will go through and select every plugin that I don't want to change. So my Q1 was just basically a high pass filter before my tuning, but everything else safe. And as you go across, you'll see that's the case for everybody. And that's intentional, because I don't want my EQ on Joy to change when I hit snapshots. All I want to do is that when I click next to go from How Great Thou Art to Yours, I want it to go to C to F, and it does. So that's one of the biggest parts of SuperRack that I really like, especially for broadcast. For live front of house mixing, it's a little bit different. It can be helpful if I have a guitar, like maybe I have a guitar player that's changing guitars between sets, so I can save different presets depending on what I'm looking at here. But for broadcast, it's really helpful to be able to recall BPM and auto-tune key so that I'm not having to worry about whether everything got changed properly or not. So that's a big part. There's not much else here really. Like, we're going to get into a lot of these plugins individually as we go. But for now, I mean, you're looking at everything here. It's pretty straightforward. If you were needing to route something, that becomes a little more complicated. If you're running SuperRack on an insert, which we are at front of house, it's if you ever, something got unrouted, right? You could go and click the insert and find out what number. And so I go and see the insert and I say, okay, it's on IO port 2, channel 7. So I can go mono. Here we go, channel 7. And now I'm good. But most of that should be done for you already. So that's just a really, really basic overview of SuperRack, kind of how we set it up. If you have any questions, just drop them down in the comments here, and looking forward to putting out more training videos.